The billionaire yelled at his assistant, but her shocking response froze the office at 3 a.m. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like the anxious hearts of those trapped inside the penthouse office. It was a typical late-night grind for the staff of Forge Industries. The shadows danced anxiously against the walls, as the clock ticked menacingly toward 3 a.m. Then it happened. The door burst open, and there he stood, billionaire Blake Marshall, a man whose mere presence commanded respect and fear. His voice cut through the silence like glass shattering. "What the hell have you done, Jenna?" All eyes turned to his assistant. Jenna's usual poise wavered, tightly gripping the edge of her desk with trembling hands, but that wasn't the strangest part. In this moment of chaos, Jenna didn't cower. No, she lifted her chin defiantly. The room felt like it held its breath, anticipating her next move. She looked at Blake, her eyes ablaze. "You think you scare me?" She shot back, her voice cracking the tension like a whip. Gasps echoed from several onlookers, their faces pale, as if they had just witnessed a lightning strike on a clear day. That's when it got even weirder. The temp outside plummeted, and the air inside seemed to thicken, vibrating with an electric hum. A flicker of dread washed over them. Was it the noise from the AC, or had they stumbled upon something darker? An uneasy feeling settled in everyone's gut. You could almost see the pulse of fear running through the group as they exchanged looks filled with disbelief. The billionaire, usually unshakable, stood frozen, his bravado slipping. "Jenna, you don't understand the consequences," he warned, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in, determination written all over her face. "Try me. You're not the boss of my fear anymore." It was a moment nobody would soon forget. No one moved, as if time itself was caught in its own trap. Jenna's defiance pierced the thick air, igniting a secret within the walls. What was she hiding? Secrets swirled through their minds. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." As Jenna's words hung in the air, a subtle vibration began to rumble beneath the floor. The lights dimmed, casting shadows that twisted and turned like dark spirits waltzing through a haunted hall. Everyone felt it now, an unnatural force. A chill snaked down their spines as whispers grew louder, but Jenna stood her ground. Her heart raced, and she dared to look into Blake's eyes, searching for answers, but what she found only deepened the mystery. He was scared too, the coldness in his eyes flickered with something desperation. The clock ticked on, and with every second, anticipation swelled. What had they stumbled upon together? As the last of the silence shattered like a fragile glass, Jenna took a step forward. "I know what you did," she proclaimed. The tension in the room thickened, hearts drumming in unison. What was coming next? The question echoed loudly in the minds of everyone present as they waited, breath held, for the truth buried under layers of power struggles to unravel. Little did they know, the real nightmare was just about to begin. The electric atmosphere crackled like a summer storm, turning ominous. Jenna's words hung in the still air, and the office fell into a heavy silence. Everyone was lost in a storm of fear and curiosity. What did Jenna know? What had Blake done? Blake's face twisted into a mask of disbelief, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He took a step back, the harsh fluorescent light glinting off his sharp features. "You don't know what you're talking about," he retorted, but his voice trembled just enough to hint at the truth lurking behind his denial. The people in the office knew better than to trust that bravado. The longer Jenna stared into his eyes, the more cracks appeared in his armor. "Don't I?" She shot, her tone rising, almost mocking. The warmth of anger flowed through her as she pulled courage from hurtful places deep within. Do you think I wouldn't find out? People talk, Blake. Your empire is built on secrets, and they're starting to crumble. A murmur fluttered through the gathered staff, as if a gust of wind had blown over a campfire. They couldn't help but lean in, straining to hear the truth unravel. The stakes were rising, one heartbeat at a time. Suddenly, the lights flickered wildly, plunging the room into brief darkness before they stuttered back into brightness. Jenna inhaled sharply. Instinctively, she sensed the air around her shifting, as if it was thickening with a dangerous promise. The shadows seemed to shrink closer, closing them off from the outside world. Could they be trapped here, held captive by the weight of their own fears? Enough of this. Blake's voice boomed again, authoritative but frantic. He moved toward Jenna, aiming to break her strength with sheer presence, but this time she was ready. You can't intimidate me. Not anymore, she asserted, pressing her palms flat against her desk as if grounding herself against his looming figure. Before Blake could respond, a sudden crash echoed from the back of the office, drawing gasps from the onlookers. Everyone whipped around, hearts thudding in sync, eyes wide. A file cabinet had toppled over, spilling papers like confetti across the floor. The atmosphere shifted again, a gust of cold air rushing in. Did you see that? One intern stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Whispers erupted amongst the group, fear growing like a wildfire. Jenna's courage was bolstered by the frenzy surrounding her. Maybe the ghosts of your past are finally joining the party. She taunted, half excited, half desperate. Blake froze, his gaze darting between his assistant and the chaos sparked by the fallen cabinet. It was clear. He was losing control. You're playing with fire, Jenna, he rasped, his face flushed with a mingling of anger and fear. And then, just before she prepared to respond, the room erupted into darkness once more. An oppressive silence followed, punctuated only by the frantic heartbeat in Jenna's chest. It felt like they were on the edge of an immense chasm, teetering dangerously close to the unknown. As the darkness wrapped around them, the shadows seemed to breathe, alive and swirling with ominous intent. Jenna fought down panic, instead clenching her fists and preparing for whatever lay ahead. The tempest within Blake mirrored her growing resolve. Lights flickered and then burst, illuminating everything for a brief second. A calculation, a realization, a reckoning. As quickly as they had illuminated, the lights went out, plunging the room back into suffocating darkness, but in that brief flash of light, Jenna caught a glimpse of something in Blake's expression, a flicker of truth behind the mask of denial. The abyss was wide. And as the darkness heightens, the question floated up again, echoing in her mind with cold insistence, was she ready to face the truth she had unknowingly awoken? The muted thrum of tension threatened to explode. In the shadows, secrets lurked, waiting for the moment to reveal themselves. What would Jenna discover when the light returned? The weight of silence pressed down like a heavy fog, thick and suffocating. Jenna's heart raced wildly, the pulse in her ears drumming in irregular rhythm. The flickering lights had shown a fleeting glimpse of Blake's inner turmoil, fear, desperation, but now all that remained was darkness, wrapping around them like a funeral shroud. In that endless moment, all she could hear was the shallow breathing of her colleagues, who hung on the edge of anticipation and dread. The panic was palpable, racing through the room, mingling with the lingering shock of the fallen cabinet. In the blackness, shadows moved, relentless and alive, feeding off the electric energy crackling in the air. Then, without warning, a sharp scream sliced through the dark, freezing everyone in their tracks. What was that? Someone shrieked in terror. It sounded raw, the voice of someone who had felt the chill of fear slip down their spine. Jenna's adrenaline surged. Stay calm. She shouted, her voice cutting through the oppressive atmosphere, a beacon of defiance. We need to stay together. But Blake's laugh erupted, dark and mocking, echoing around the room. Together? Do you really think that matters now? You forced this moment, Jenna. You think you can handle what's coming? Time stilled, and Jenna felt a mix of anger and dread boiling within her. Hand trembling, she clenched her teeth, the adrenaline surging through her veins. "You can't break me," she asserted, the electricity between them sparking anew. At that moment, the lights flared back into life, bright and blinding. Jenna squinted and shielded her eyes, but when she looked again, everything had changed. The office looked different, as if it had been rearranged in the chaos. Papers that scattered from the cabinet now formed patterns on the floor, messages blurred in ink, words barely legible. Blake's face had gone pale, the bravado stripped away. Fear widened his eyes, and for the first time, Jenna saw a man stripped to his core, one who knew he was backed into a corner. "What did you do?" he whispered, panic veiling his arrogance. Jenna took a daring step forward, emboldened by the twist of fate. "What did I do, Blake? Or rather, what have you done? The truth is starting to slip away from you. This can't be just about me anymore, it's about you and everything you've hidden." As if in response to her proclamation, the lights flickered again, intensifying the atmosphere surrounding them. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of half-heard secrets echoing through the air. Jenna glanced at her coworkers, their confused yet transfixed faces watching the escalating situation with a mix of horror and fascination. Her voice gained strength as she continued, "You might think you can control this, but secrets have a way of coming to light. You can't bury the truth forever." The angry flush returned to Blake's cheeks, fury replacing fear. "You're playing a dangerous game, Jenna. I'm not the one who started it." She shot back, but doubt crept in, icy fingers wrapping around her resolve. Was she ready for the storm of chaos she had stirred? In that moment, an unexpected crash came from the back of the office, a sound that reverberated with more urgency than the last. The walls seemed to expand and contract, and Jenna felt the temperature drop sharply. "Don't move," she ordered, her voice barely more than a whisper, but full of authority. Another crash, louder this time, sent tremors through the floor. The shadows coiled around them, dark tendrils stretching into ominous shapes. "What is happening?" Jenna's voice trembled, and the reality of the situation crashed around her. Blake stepped back, eyes darting widely, revealing a new layer of panic. This has gone too far. As the office trembled in the wake of impending doom, Jenna braced herself because she knew this was just the beginning. The truth was clawing its way out of the shadows, and she had only barely scratched the surface. What lay hidden in the dark corners of their world? And would she be brave enough to confront it before it consumed them all? Jenna's heart pounded like a drum as the second crash reverberated through the office, rattling her bones. What was happening? Her mind raced, grappling with the unfolding chaos. The dim light flickered ominously, sending silhouettes dancing across the walls, like shadows coming alive in a twisted play. "Everyone, stay close," she yelled, her voice steady, although inside she felt a twitch of panic. The tension hung heavy in the air, thick as the fog outside. She turned to Blake, who now looked completely unhinged. His face was flushed, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. "What do you know?" he snapped, desperation clinging to each word. The bravado he once held crumble like dust. "I know that secrets don't just die. They fester, Blake. They grow until they burst," Jenna replied, her own voice throat loosening as she took a step closer, and then she heard a soft scratching sound, coming from behind the shattered cabinet. The noise grew louder, almost like claws raking against wood. Her colleagues grimaced, eyes wide with fear. They looked around, unmoored, tangled in their uncertainties. She stole a glance at them. Sophie, her closest friend, was shivering with what looked like a mix of terror and intrigue. "Don't. You can't." Blake's voice cut sharply through the growing noise. He stood rigid, the horror of something unthinkable settling deep within him. But Jenna couldn't help herself. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a precipice, and somehow, she had to leap. "What's back there, Blake? Is it worth letting your fear control you?" With each word, the scratching intensified, and the lights flickered just above them, buzzing angrily as if startled by the revelations. Then it happened. One of the scattered papers lifted into the air, spinning round and round like a leaf caught in a windstorm before drifting toward Blake. "Stop it!" he barked again. "Why?" Jenna shot back. "You're scared of what might come out. This is your chance. Face it. What are you hiding? What have you done?" The lights cut out suddenly, plunging them into suffocating darkness once more. Breaths hitched, and the air felt charged, as if the room were holding its breath. "Jenna!" Sophie's voice cracked, a quiver of panic slipping through. "Shoo!" Jenna whispered, urging everyone to remain still. A moment stretched out, thickening with dread. And then crash. Something heavy hit the floor, the sound like a heart shattering. She froze. In that crushing silence, each heart in the room seemed to beat with a singular rhythm, a dark dance of fear and uncertainty. With a surge of defiance, Jenna held her breath and stepped backward, trying to get a glimpse of what lay behind the cabinet. As her eyes adjusted, she saw a pair of glinting eyes staring back at her from the shadows. "Oh my God," she gasped, the pounding of her heart drowning out the responsive whispers of her colleagues. "What is that?" Blake barked a warning, but Jenna couldn't process his panic. A million thoughts raced through her mind. She reached toward Sophie, her hand shaking. "Get out!" Blake shrieked, finally breaking down. "We need to leave, now." Jenna felt paralyzed. What was it that lurked in the shadows? What truth awaited them? A sick realization dawned upon her. Blake was hiding something far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. "We can't," she started to say, but the lights flickered back on with a vengeance, illuminating what lay beyond the cabinet. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a person. It was a hidden stash, covered in dust yet unmistakably present. Thick folders labeled with dark secrets spilled out a web of lies that Blake had woven. "Holy hell," Jenna whispered, her heart racing as if it would burst from her chest. Would the truth finally be revealed? Would they all fall if secret sparked? Blake's eyes widened, anger and fear clashing in a storm of emotions. "You shouldn't have gone looking," he growled. Could they turn back now? Or were they too far gone? With lives hanging in the balance, one thing was crystal clear: the darkness was far from over, and Jenna was about to unearth something that would change everything. What would she do with this new knowledge? And what consequences awaited them all? Jenna's breath came in sharp gasps as she stared at the chaotic spill of secrets before her. Each folder whispered promises and threats, a tempest of deceit just waiting to unravel. The dim light shifted, catching the titles: Project Darkshore, Financial Crisis 2022, and others that sent chills up her spine. What had Blake dragged them into? "Blake, what is all of this?" She dared to ask, her voice barely a whisper, thick with disbelief, his face twisted in a grimace, like a man staring at death itself. "You don't want to know," he muttered. "Just give it back." "Give what back?" Jenna shot back, pushing closer, her curiosity ignited. "This is bigger than you. You owe it to us to explain." In the dark of the office, the implications of each name echoed through Jenna's mind. It was more than just paperwork, it was evidence. Evidence that could destroy lives. And Blake was at the heart of it. Sophie, frozen beside Jenna, finally broke away from her shock. Her hands trembled as she leaned in to read the titles. We can't let this go. If this gets out, shut up." Blake yelled, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. He rushed forward, but the fear flickered in his eyes. "Come on, Jenna. We need to go." Blake's plea felt frantic now, as if he were standing in front of an oncoming train. "You don't understand what you're messing with." "What am I messing with?" Jenna practically shouted, feeling a surge of courage. "More lies. More manipulation. We deserve answers." But with every word, something shifted. The air became electric. She felt it in the pit of her stomach, a warning of impending calamity. The walls around them seemed to pulse, alive with the weight of Blake's uncertainty and their shared guilt. "I should have burned it all," he hissed. "Now you'll all be in danger." "Danger?" Jenna's heart raced even faster. "What danger?" Before Blake could respond, something crashed against the floor, shaking the office again. Papers rustled and flew into the air like startled birds. A chilling gust swept through the space, chilling Jenna's spine. "We have to move," Blake insisted, inching toward the door, panic etched across his features, but Jenna stepped forward. "You can't run anymore, Blake. Face this. We won't go anywhere until you tell us what you've done." His eyes widened with a cocktail of fear and rage. "I can't." "You're better off not knowing." "Better off?" Sophie echoed. "We're already in too deep." Jenna felt the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. They were teetering on a precipice, holding secrets that could very well shatter everything they knew. A newfound resolve surged in her. "What's worse, Blake? Knowing or being in the dark? You have to choose." Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging them back into darkness, a moment of deafening silence that felt like the breath before a plunge. And then, a sound emerged from the shadows, low and guttural, echoing through the stillness like a heartbeat. Jenna Blake's voice was trembling now, barely a whisper. "We have to leave." "You don't know what that means." "What does it mean?" She pressed, fueled by an insatiable thirst for the truth. Blake backed away, terror flooding his eyes. "It means we're not alone." Before anyone could respond, the scratching returned, louder and more urgent, resonating from the dark corners of the room. I don't like this," Sophie whimpered, clenching Jenna's arm tightly. Jenna swallowed hard. "Whatever's lurking in the dark, I won't let it control us. We must uncover this together." But the shadows danced closer, revealing not just secrets, but something else, something waiting with insatiable hunger. The air split open with a low growl, the tangible dread sinking deep into their bones, as another sound joined the cacophony, a distant siren wailing in the night. As they exchanged terrified glances, Jenna felt a terrifying clarity dawning upon her. "This isn't just about Blake anymore," she breathed, realization sinking in. "This is about all of us. And we might have just awakened the monster." What nightmare had they stumbled into, and could they escape the horrors lying in wait? Dark tendrils of uncertainty wrapped around her mind, tightening with every passing second. The only thing she knew for sure was that their time was running out. Jenna felt the walls pressing in as the growl reverberated around them. Her heart pounded, a frantic drum echoing the urgency of the moment. The shadows seemed to thicken, coiling like smoke around her, and Jenna thought she could see something lurking just beyond the edges of her vision. Blake's face had blanched. He was a mere ghost, a shell of the confident man she once knew. "I told you," he breathed, "we need to leave. Now. Not without answers." Jenna shouted back, defiance igniting her pulse. "You're not leaving us to face whatever that is alone." The scratching intensified, a fierce crescendo of nails on wood, sending chills down her spine. Sophie's grip tightened, her nails digging into Jenna's skin, but Jenna fought through the pain, determined not to show fear. "Blake," Jenna insisted, her voice cutting through the fray of fear, "tell us what is going on." Blake staggered back, his eyes darting around the darkened room. "You won't believe me," he gasped, the tremor in his voice slicing through the chaos with a sharp edge. "Try me," she shot back, stepping forward defiantly, closing the gap between them, demanding the truth amid the shadows. I was in deep," he stammered. "Project Dark Shore isn't just a scandal. It's a network. A web of crimes that reach far and wide. They'll do anything to protect it." "What do you mean?" Jenna pressed, urgency seeping into every word. "They're watching us. They'll kill to keep these secrets buried." The growl morphed into a deafening roar just as a loud crash sent chunks of drywall tumbling from above. Dust swirled around them, closing in on the oxygen they desperately needed. Faster! Blake shouted, pushing past Jenna toward the exit. We have to get out before they notice we're here. No! Jenna yelled, feeling the conviction of her resolve. We can't just run away. We need evidence, we need evidence. Sophie gasped, her wide eyes pleading. How do you even plan on getting that if we're dead? Before Jenna could answer, the lights flickered back to life, throwing harsh beams across the room. In the harsh glow, the shadows elongated, revealing a steel door that had been hidden in the far corner, one they hadn't noticed before. What if it leads to? Sophie's voice trailed off, but they didn't need to finish the thought. They shared a knowing look. This was their chance. Blake, we have to go. Jenna urged. Blake hesitated, torn between self-preservation and the value of truth. The low growl shifted pitch, rising as if aware of their plans. Blake's fear radiated like an electric current through the air, but Jenna pushed down her own nerves. Together! She shouted, breaking the tension. They rushed to the door. It was heavy, reinforced with steel. Jenna pressed her shoulder against it, but it didn't budge. Give me a hand! She yelled. Sophie scrambled forward, her fear surging into adrenaline. They pushed together, muscles straining, breath coming in short bursts. The door finally creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into the shadowy depths. Who knows what's down there? Sophie whispered, terror creeping into her voice. It's our only option, Jenna said. She swallowed hard, heart racing. Let us find out what they're hiding. The moment they leapt into the abyss, the door slammed shut behind them, swallowing the light and sound. An unfamiliar chill enveloped them, the air thicker, laced with dread. As they stood trembling in the darkened staircase, a faint sound echoed up from below, a low voice, sinister and commanding. It sent terror shooting through Jenna's veins. Welcome, children, I see you've come to play. Who were they confronting in the darkness? What secrets awaited them in those depths? Even as hope flickered, Jenna felt the monster's breath on her neck, looming closer. There was no turning back. The darkness engulfed them as they descended the staircase, the worn steps creaking underfoot. Jenna wished she could wipe the chill from her bones, but the heavy air weighed down on her, thick with despair and foreboding. Do you hear that? Sophie whispered, her voice trembling. It broke through the silence like a fragile glass splintering under pressure. Jenna strained to listen. The voice from above lingered in her mind, a ghostly echo. Welcome, children, I see you've come to play. It was chilling, taunting, promising something sinister lurking just beyond the reach of their weak flashlight beam. Stay close, Jenna urged, her heart thudding painfully against her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted, and dread settled in like an unwanted guest. Blake hung back, his face pale. You don't understand. We shouldn't be down here. Too late for that now, Jenna snapped, her frustration flaring. If we don't find out what they're hiding, all of this could be for nothing. Suddenly, a flash of light illuminated the corridor ahead, the thin beam of a flashlight cutting through the blackness. Blake's eyes widened. That's not us. Run! Jenna screamed, adrenaline blasting through her veins. They darted down the narrow hall, tripping over debris, heart racing as frantic breaths filled the air. Behind them, the thud of heavy footsteps echoed, relentless and growing closer, echoing like a predator closing in on its prey. The growls morphed into more distinct sounds, voices, deep and muffled, but unmistakably human. Faster! Sophie cried, urging them on. We can't let them catch us. They skidded around a corner and instinctively ducked into a small adjoining room, closing the door behind them. It was dark and cramped, the air thick with the scent of dampness and rust. Jenna pressed her back against the cold steel, listening as shouts rang out in the hallway. Where are they? A voice bellowed, sharp and menacing. Jenna recognized it instantly. It was the same voice that echoed up those stairs, threading fear deep within her. Did you hear that? Sophie whimpered, her eyes glistening with tears. Jenna nodded, the panic pooling in her stomach like a lead weight. We can't stay here. We have to find another way out. Just then, a loud bang reverberated through the metal door, making Jenna jump. They're coming. She whispered, her voice a sharp hiss. They had to move. Blake's face lit up with an idea. There's a vent. We can crawl through there. He pointed toward the far corner of the room. It might lead to the outside. Are you serious? Sophie gulped, voice shaking. What if we get trapped? Better than sticking around to find out what they want with us. Jenna shot back, not wanting to acknowledge the dark possibilities. They rushed to the vent, pulling at its rusted cover until it creaked open. Shoving her body inside, Jenna felt the claustrophobia threaten to swallow her whole. Go. Now. She urged, panic creeping into her words. She could hear the door crashing open behind them, splinters flying like shrapnel. As they crawled through the vent, the dark space pressed in on them, making Jenna feel vulnerable in a way she hadn't before. Just as she thought they reached the end, she felt the ground drop away. What's down there? Blake's voice trembled in the tight space. Something's waiting for us, Jenna breathed, a chill snaking down her spine. Do you hear that? Sophie exclaimed, terror lacing her voice. A deep snarl erupted from somewhere in the darkness, vibrating through the walls. Get ready, Jenna whispered, heart ready to explode as they lowered themselves into the abyss once again, unsure of what was waiting to devour them in the shadows below, but as an overwhelming rush of cold wafted up from the darkness, Jenna felt her blood run cold. Welcome back, children, the voice hissed again, as familiar as a childhood tale turned nightmare. I hope you're ready to play for real. What were they about to unleash in the terrors of the dark? The air was colder now, like ice settling deep within Jenna's bones. Her heart raced as she swung her legs down into the void, a pit of blackness swirling beneath her. She landed on something hard, a solid floor, but there were no lights. Is everyone okay? She whispered, her voice echoing softly in the dark, clashing against the dense silence. Fine, Blake replied, though there was uncertainty in his tone. What now? Sophie took a shaky breath. We're not alone, her voice faltered, revealing her dread as they all heard it, a low growl, rolling in from the edges of their invisible confines. It slithered into their ears, raising goosebumps on their skin. Let us move quietly, Jenna commanded, her pulse thrumming wildly. They turned, searching for any sign of light or an exit, but the air felt stagnant, as if the very walls were closing in. In the absence of sight, sounds became amplified, their quiet footfalls, the distant scuttling of unseen creatures, and then a whisper. It pierced the heavy silence like a knife, dripping with malice. You shouldn't have come here. Panic surged through Jenna. Did you hear that? She gasped, pressing her fingertips to her lips to keep from crying out. Sophie nodded, her breaths coming quicker. What is this place? I don't know, Blake groaned, wrestling with the heavy atmosphere. We need to find a way out. Before he could finish, a sudden crash rang out. The sound ricocheted off the walls. Jenna spun around, the darkness wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket while she strained to make out shapes. Over there. Sophie whispered, pointing toward what looked like a faint glimmer at the end of the corridor. The flicker of light was tantalizing, a beacon begging them to move. Go. Jenna urged, though fear hung thick in the air like smoke. They pressed forward, adrenaline driving them toward that glow, the shadows gripping their heels. The growl returned, more pronounced, escalating into a snarl that reverberated in their chests. It felt alive, hungry, a threat whispering promises of danger. Faster. Jenna shouted, her instincts screaming at them to escape. As they sprinted, the glimmer grew more pronounced, a doorway. It beckoned them, though they knew not what lay beyond. Just as they reached it, a heavy thud crashed behind them. The door shuddered wildly, and in that moment of hesitation, Jenna wondered if they should turn back. But she glanced at Blake and Sophie, fear mirrored in their eyes, and pressed on. Blake yanked the door open. The side of the frame gasped like an ancient mouth, revealing another dark expanse. Inside, the air smelled of decay. Dust danced in a thin light that spilled in, revealing old, broken furniture littered around the room. "Where are we?" Sophie murmured, stepping into the space, but a new sound captured their attention, a low whimper, echoing against the walls. "There!" Jenna gasped, spotting something quivering in the far corner. As they approached cautiously, the shape came into focus, a figure huddled and trembling, its face hidden but clearly terrified. "Please help me," it begged, voice muffled and weak. "Who are you?" Jenna demanded, her heart thrumming in her throat. I'm trapped. You have to get me out." But as they reached out, the lights flickered violently overhead, plunging them back into darkness. The growls intensified, angry and fierce, surrounding them like a storm. A cold suspicion gripped Jenna. "Is this a trap? Are you welcome to the game, children?" The voice boomed once more, shaking the very walls around them, dulling the cries of the trapped figure. Panic tinged with dread took hold of Jenna. They had unknowingly stumbled into a situation far beyond their control. What game was being played here? And as the shadows began to close in, clawing at their heels, Jenna wondered if they would ever make it out alive. But the voices whispered to her once again, "Are you ready to learn the truth?" What would the truth reveal? The lights flickered again, casting long, jittery shadows that seemed to dance along the crumbling walls. Jenna's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet felt rooted to the ground, paralyzed by both fear and confusion. The whispers circled her mind, dark and tantalizing. "Are you ready to learn the truth?" Before she could respond, a guttural roar erupted from the darkness, forcing her to stumble backward. Blake grabbed her arm, his grip tight and urgent. "We need to go," he shouted, his voice barely cutting through the chaos. "Where?" Sophie cried, her eyes wide, glimmering with tears as she scanned the room frantically. "There's nowhere to run." Suddenly, the trapped figure began to unravel, its shape shifting, contorting in a sickening manner. The light glimmered off a face Jenna could barely recognize, its features twisted, haunted. "You shouldn't have come. It will consume you." Jenna felt the chills surge through her spine, and the growl returned, deeper than ever, echoing with a growing rage. Shadows wavered and shifted as if alive, hungry tendrils reaching out, grasping for her. "Just listen." "We can't," she began, but her words fell into the abyss between them, drowned by the roar of unseen beasts and the panic that pooled in the corners of her mind. "Look for a way out," Blake yelled as he pushed Sophie forward, his attention split between the lurking shadows and the shrinking confinement of their refuge. The sense of loss pressed heavily in her chest, a weight that threatened to crush her spirit. Jenna felt a rush of defiance. "Stop. We can't just leave them," she shouted over the clamor. The figure trembled but didn't respond. The flickering light illuminated just enough, a barely discernible door not far from where they stood. Without waiting for an answer, she bolted toward it, Blake and Sophie close behind. The growls morphed into screams, twisted with rage as they sprinted, the air thickening around them. Did they even know what awaited on the other side? Fear wrapped around Jenna like a coil, squeezing tighter with each step. They reached the door, its surface grimy and ancient. "We have to open it," Jenna shouted. She could feel the heat of the creature behind them, breathing down their necks, ready to swallow them whole. Blake fumbled with the handle, twisting in desperation. It groaned, but wouldn't budge. It stuck. He cursed. "Push," Sophie urged, panic threading through her voice. With a collective effort, they forced against the door. It groaned until, with a shudder, it swung open violently, spilling light like a broken dam. Jenna stumbled through the threshold, her body surging into the blinding brightness. But as they rushed forward, a bone-chilling laugh echoed behind them, mocking their escape. The door slammed shut as they fell into a new chamber, the air heavier and charged with a malevolent presence. Breathless, Jenna turned to her friends. "Did we make it?" The new room was enormous, yet uninviting. Strange symbols adorned its walls, pulsing as if they held a heartbeat of their own. The shadows lurked behind them, a tangible menace pushing against their backs. "Well, this doesn't look promising," Blake said, his eyes wide, mirroring Jenna's belief that they had merely changed their doom. And then, a whisper washed over them, chilling but eerily soothing. "Welcome to the next level of your journey." The shadows twisted and stretched, forming shapes, looming figures hiding just out of sight. Jenna felt her pulse quicken once more, this time with anticipation and dread. What had they unwittingly walked into now? "Is this a trap?" she asked, glancing at Blake and Sophie. But before they could respond, the lights began to dim, and laughter echoed once again, a ghastly chorus that seemed to promise that this was just the beginning of whatever nightmare awaited them. There was no turning back now. What horror lay ahead? The chamber pulsed with an ominous energy as Jenna's heart raced like a wild stallion in her chest. "What is going on here?" she panted, seeking reassurance from Blake and Sophie, two people bound by dread and determination. Shadows shifted along the walls, weaving tales of despair and suffering, remnants of others who had walked this path before them. "Whatever this place is, it feels alive," Blake muttered, glancing nervously around. His bravado had vanished, leaving only the frantic glimmer of panic in his eyes. It was clear they were part of something far greater than they could comprehend. A deep voice echoed around them, reverberating through the walls like thunder. "Game begins anew, children, ready yourself." Jenna's stomach twisted at the threat dripping from the voice, but she squashed her fear deep down. "We're not just going to survive this," she declared, forcing strength into her tone. "We're going to end it, once and for all." Blake nodded, drawing in a breath that steadied his shaky resolve. "Right. Those files, if we gather evidence, we can bring him down. No more secrets." Sophie glanced nervously at the symbols sketched into the walls, their meaning lost but their intent palpable. "But how? There is something sinister shadowing us." As if in response, a tremor rippled through the room, shaking the ground beneath their feet. They exchanged startled glances just moments before a shadow lunged at them from the darkness, a monstrous shape with glistening eyes and jagged claws. "Move!" Jenna shouted, adrenaline surging again as they dodged the beast, the horrific growl echoing behind like a death knell. They sprinted deeper into the room, seeking the sanctuary of light that might guide them back to safety. "Where do we go?" Sophie cried, her voice laced with fear. Jenna's gaze landed on the far end where another door stood ajar, a thin line of light seeping through the crack. "That way. Trust me." She forged ahead, uncaring of the chaos pooling behind her. As they burst through the door, they stumbled into a large room, each breath filled with a strange smell, something both sweet and toxic, swirling in the air like a toxic fog. Broken chains littered the floor, remnants of past captives. That cracks of steel somehow echoed their pain. "Is this where they keep the secrets?" Blake wondered aloud, but the question was lost as the portal they just entered slammed shut behind them with a resounding thud, sealing their fate with a finality that sent chills down Jenna's spine. Jenna turned to her friends, heart racing. "We can't hesitate. We need to find something, anything. Evidence of Blake's wrongdoings." Her voice wavered, uncertainty flooding through. The shadows swirled around them, the entity that had taunted them now revealing itself. "I know you. You want the power. You can't break me." She confronted the shape, though her words trembled. A deep chuckle filled the air around them, dark and suffocating. "Such fire. You're in over your head, but you'll play your part in my game." Blake took a step forward, shaking. "We won't be your pawns. We're taking down this operation." "Brave words." The voice slithered back, challenging, "Find the heart of the lie, and maybe, just maybe, you'll escape with the truth." Or a sinister pause dripped with menace. "You could become part of it." Suddenly, the ground beneath them opened, and without warning, they were sent tumbling into darkness, the air rushing past them, suffocating screams fading away. When they landed, they found themselves in a vast underground chamber. Broken mirrors hung from the walls, twisting their reflections into grotesque versions of themselves. Distorted fears and insecurities made manifest. Jenna, Sophie whispered, her voice choking with dread. What if this is the end? Then we go down fighting, she replied resolutely, wiping tears of fear from her cheeks. We're not giving up. She squared her shoulders, heart pounding with a mix of terror and determination. A glimmer caught her eye on the craggy floor, a file half buried among the rubble. She lunged forward, fingers trembling. As she pulled it free. Look! Evidence! The words burst from her as if igniting a spark deep within. Eyes wide, Blake and Sophie rushed to her side as they huddled together, revealing names of high-profile figures tied to the dark web Blake had created. This is it. We have to take this and expose it. Sophie breathed, the resolve returning to her voice. In that moment of unity, power surged around them, igniting a fire in the depths of their fears. They were not victims here, they could be warriors. And then the shadows swarmed, fangs bared, their growls intensifying. They had awakened a beast, and it was time to fight. Together. Jenna yelled, charging forward, adrenaline burning and silence shattering. They stepped into the light, breaking through the darkness of their shadows, their bond stronger than fear itself. With a single push, they unleashed a torrent of light against the encroaching darkness. The room erupted with brilliance as every piece of truth they held struck the shadows down, forcing them to retreat. Jenna felt the pull of victory, the consequences of their courage ripping through the darkness. They would return to the surface, and the world would know what Blake had hidden, exposing lies and deceit. As the shadows crumbled away, the whipped haze of light enveloped them, revealing a staircase leading upwards. We did it! Sophie's voice burst out, a thrill of disbelief and relief flooding through. They sprinted towards the steps, laughter breaking free from their lips as hope swelled, a beacon shining through the storm. Together, they would face the world. Reality stood waiting, confronting them with fear but armed with the truth. Just like they promised, they had turned the tables. As they ascended, light pierced through, hinting at liberation from the horrors they'd just endured. Jenna grasped Blake and Sophie's hands tightly, resolute that fear would never control them again, and with one last glance over their shoulders, they stepped into the light, ready to expose the truth and embrace the future they decarved from that night of darkness. That's when Jenna knew, shadows only flourish when they're hidden away. By uniting against the darkness, they had conquered it. The nightmare would never claim them again. They faced tomorrow, together. And through the doors, a new world awaited. This is the moment to reach out. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories we have coming up. Smash that like button for the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your love for this journey and let us thrive together.